It's me again, your literature coach, Sarawili. In our conversation today, we're going to reflect on how to write a proper essay based on blossoms of the savannah. Very easy, very simple. It is mandatory, then therefore, for every student who writes a proper essay to include sufficient background information to support the claims that they eschew in their essay. For example, when we're told to write an essay based on blossoms of the savannah to prove that there are particular cultural practices that are good and beneficial to the Nasilian members. Now, in this case, a student would need to identify these cultural practices that improve the lives of members of the community and then give the background information to support this. For example, a student can give a point that the Nasilian way of life clearly defines relationship so that there is no consanguinity. Now, to get the information or the background to support this, it can be evident on page 118 that says, and so was Nasilian culture. The founder had intended that the culture would regulate the lives of the people, and indeed it did. It charted out the way for everyone, from the cradle to the grave. It defined relationships. It created laws that governed ownership of property and settled disputes. It did not discriminate. It did not favor anyone over the others. It gave everyone a chance to live a full life. It protected everyone within its confines and provided cleansing procedures for those who defiled it. It was simply a cherished way of life for all the Ma people, including those in Nasila. Now, in page 118, Olekulet writes about how good Nasilian culture is. Very many times people assume that the Nasilian culture is so barbaric and so bad and it always comes to destroy, especially the girl child. But indeed, if we read along the lines, we find particular aspects of the Nasilian culture which are helpful and which help in the promotion of goodwill within the culture. Now, some of these practices help in the development of the community at large. For example, we also have they have togetherness in communal activities like communal work. If we read from page 148 all the way to 149, it is evident that Nasilian people used to work together. They loved each other, which means they saw each other as important facets of the community that would come together to prove that life was better if they worked together. Page 148 says, life and work in that home was communal. Although each mother had her house and cooked her own food, all grown-up daughters helped each other to bring in water, firewood, and assisted in the actual cooking. Those mothers who were incapable, incapacitated by pregnancy, as two of them were at that time, received most help as the grown-up daughters were posted to their houses nearly permanently. So as we can see, the work done in this culture was communal. People didn't break out and do things on their own. They did it together as a unit. That brought about a lot of unity in these homes and made them strong. Unlike today where if we have stepmothers, these ones live here and they don't understand each other. So in this particular Nasilian community, they do things together. Similarly, the justice system among the Nasilian people is apt and acceptable. In page 161, that is very evident when we look at the justice system. How did they solve their cases? And did they look at the offenders as sinners who should be destroyed, or they did it with mercy? Let's see, 166 it says, two old men walking towards the group saw the 30 armed men. Of course, this after the two girls, Tayo and Rezian, have been accosted. And then men led by Joseph Parmuat go out to look for this man, baying for blood. They need to kill them. Then what happens is, the happening dawned on them when the young men who seemed to be fleeing from mortal danger fell at their feet and had their legs pleading for intercession. When the old men hesitated, the two cried more, pushing themselves underneath the old men's clothing between their legs. but before any pleading could take place, they had been clobbered and were bleeding profusely. So what happens next? When these two men who had accosted the young girls have been caught and they've been beaten, are they beaten to death like today we see mob justice? Let's see what happens. The men were eventually spared. According to Nasilian culture, a man who pleaded for mercy and fearfully hid his head between the legs of an old man, no matter what crime he had committed, always had his life spared. They were, however, roughed up and made to undergo intense interrogation. So in this case, we see Joseph Parmot leading a team of men, young boys, to look out for those who had hurt our own relatives. And the justice system saves the people. In as much as it punishes the evil, it forgives and has mercy in it. And this is something that can be copied from the Nasilian community as a good or a positive aspect of that particular community. And again, apart from the justice system of the Nasilian culture, there is pride in the cultural identity. This is evident on page 44 from the children's performance as they were at Olekailo's home. Nasilian traditional dance would stand the test of time. They believed that the Nasilian culture was there to stay. And again on page 77, we see that the jewelry worn by those who had come as guests, ivory beads, the colored laces, the kangas and shukas, it showed the pride that they had for their particular traditional beliefs. And page 51 all the way to 52, we see that all and sundry were invited to serve the occasion. So in the invitation, it was not about social classes who had money or who had more friends. Every member of the Assyrian culture was welcome to come and enjoy this particular homestead that had come from town. Again, we jump to page 52. Ole Musanga glorifies the Ma culture, the blood and marrow that gives sustenance to the body. That is page 52. Ole Musanga, the old man, has a candid description of the Nasilian culture that captures how important it is to these people. He says, and speaking of home, Ole Musanka said candidly, Ole Kaelo must be told that home is not this house, however magnificent it may be. Now, he talks about four things. Number one, home is Ma, home is Nasila, home is family, and home is the children. So according to this culture, Ma, Nasila, family, and children are very important and should be protected by every means. He goes ahead to say that sever yourself from the culture of your people and you effectively become all kirikoi. That means a vagrant, somebody who doesn't have a home, moving from here and there. And then, finally, he spoke to Tai and Rezian towards the end. Ole Musanka, still the old man, he says, do not listen to crusaders of an alien culture that is being perpetuated by a certain Entangoroi called Makerere. The WASP advocates that we maintain into Yen Mangalana amongst our daughters. Taba, may she go down with the setting sun. So the value of the family and the disclaimer against interference with the culture is strongly advocated against by Ole Musanka because he believes these traditional beliefs, this togetherness, and their practices must be sustained and maintained because to him, the Ma people, Nasila, family, and children are most important. This is an aspect that brings development and leads to a sustainable society and a sustainable family. Lastly, protection of the girl child. Please, at your own time, look at page 115 to 117, page 124 to 126, and page 175 to identify sections where the girl child has clearly been protected in this society. Many people believe that in the Nasilian culture, the girl child is taken to be circumcised, is looked down upon, is hated. But no, far be it from that. In fact, the girl child is adored. The girl child is given preeminence, and the girl child is protected in the Nasilian culture. So, when writing an essay, all these background informations must be embedded onto the support of such a claim. Enough said for today. Always hit on the subscribe button so you get the most awesome analysis of these particular set book sections. Next time, we're going to look at another essay, Blosoms of the Savannah. Enough for today.